You're watching the Common Constitutionalist video podcast.
Yeah, baby!
Good day to you all. My name is Brent Smith. I'm the Common Constitutionalist. Today we're going to be talking about one topic. I was going to talk about a few of them, but I want to try and keep it a little shorter, as you all know. Should we scrub history? That's what I'll be discussing today right after this. Be right back. Welcome back. So we're seeing more and more calls by the radical left and ignorant student groups, same thing, frankly, to continue the practice of tearing down or just removing statues and monuments and the namesake of schools and whatever the heck it happens to be. Former President Trump warned us about this, and they mocked him, of course, for it. Saying that he was just full of crap, he was paranoid, and he's a conspiracy theorist, son of a gun. Aren't we all? When this trend first began, he warned us about this, and he asked rhetorically, when's it going to end? To whom is it going to end? Who's next? Okay? After you tear down all these Confederate statues and monuments and get rid of and wipe clean the sin of the Confederacy, who are you going to go to next? And he asked whether it was going to be, is it going to be the founders? Is it going to be Washington or Jefferson or even maybe Lincoln or whoever knows? Well, son of a gun, he was prescient. It didn't take a damn genius to be prescient in this particular case. All you need to know is the slippery slope theory. That's it. And that's another thing that the left hates is the slippery slope, because for whatever reason they don't think it exists. It exists in human nature all the time. And basically the slippery slope theory. Woohoo! Say that 3 times fast. If you can, send me a comment. Send me a video. Slippery slope, slippery slope, slippery slope. All right, at any rate, it is absolutely real that, you know, and this is where the saying, give them an inch, they'll take a mile, that's the slippery slope theory. That's what it is, basically. They start out small, you compromise, you let them get away with something small, and they just push it and push it and push it, and it slides ever more, devolves down the slope. That's the slippery slope theory. And we're seeing it playing out now. This is from Campus Reform. Speaking of Trump being right. Students demand removal of who? That's right. The George Washington statue at the University of Washington, out in Washington State. The university's namesake, they want to take the statue down. At the same time, in Texas, Baylor University wants to also take down its namesake. I can't even remember what the crap it was his name. It was really a Judge Robert Emmett Bledsoe Baylor. They want to take that statue down. And as a matter of fact, one of the Baylor organizers, I don't know if it was a student or not, explained that, quote, listen to this. The point of the picture is not to remove Judge Baylor as a whole, quote, unquote, student Sam Onalenla said of the group's actions, quote, it's to remove Judge Baylor from campus. The fact that the university is named after him has no bearing on anything. And the fact that you, Mr. Onalenla, is going to Baylor University, that says something about you, doesn't it? You ignorant fool. I don't want to see it on campus because I know I'm not supposed to be here. What? according to him. According to Baylor, Mr. Sam is black, evidently, and he's not supposed to be here because Baylor was a racist and a slave owner. That's right. You win a frickin' brass figgly jig or whatever the crap it is. Having him off campus is going to be the start of racial healing, unquote. Did you hear what he said? Because him, don't want to see it. It should be removed. Not a question, I really feel offended this. Could you think about, seeing maybe you could move it or something? No, I demand, because I'm feeling threatened several hundred years later, I'm feeling threatened, and I want it removed because I want it to be so, and I'm a nobody, okay? But it doesn't make any difference. Why should Washington and Baylor statues be removed? Again, you really don't need to ask. Once this thing even came up, you knew it was over racism. You knew that they were slave owners. I didn't know Baylor was, but that makes sense, I guess, back in the times. And we all know George Washington owned slaves. So that makes him evil. To the core, you don't need to take anything else he did in his life, any good that he did, is washed away because of the evil of slavery. And that's what they're doing, and that's what they're trying to do purposely, is taking his entire life out of context and boiling it down to George Washington owned slaves, Thomas Jefferson owned slaves, whoever owned slaves, Baylor owned slaves. So we have to erase them from history. That's the deal. You think the founders loved slavery? Well, they didn't. You would think so, because a lot of them owned slaves. They didn't love slavery. They may have accepted it and maybe even promoted it early in their lives. But as America was founded and these principles were discussed, people started to see the light, as Jefferson did, as Washington did. You can see it in their writings that they abhorred slavery. Most people, I hope, have glanced, if not read, the Declaration of Independence. It's not difficult, okay? What else is going to take you, 10 minutes? All right? If you're a slow reader, to read the entire Declaration of Independence. But most people have not read Thomas Jefferson's original draft of the Declaration of Independence, and that is decidedly different, okay? After the whole preamble, when in the course of human events, blah, 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 there is a list in the middle, in the body, a list of usurpations and abuses by the King of England, the Burger King, no, the King of England, against America, against the United States, against the colonies, the 13 colonies. Almost all these usurpations or abuses from the king on the colonies are no more than 1 or 2 lines long, no more than 1 or 2 sentences, and relatively short sentences, all right? There is one in the original draft that is monumentally long relative to the rest of all the abuses, the king's abuses. And here it is. Okay, from Thomas Jefferson's original draft of the Declaration of Independence. Handwritten, okay? It was dictated to a Microsoft Word. Quote, he, the king, has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people. Who could that be? That's right, the African nation, or African nations, the tribes of Africa, who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation thither, as in a lot of them died on the boats coming to the Caribbean and South America and Central America and the United States, America, the colonies. This piratical warfare, the opprobrium of infidel powers, is the warfare of the Christian king, okay? He made a point to say that that's a Christian king doing all this stuff, not a very Christian thing to do. The Christian king of Great Britain, determined to keep open a market where men, and men is capitalized, not just M capitalized, M-E-N capitalized, which makes them human beings, okay? Not property, human beings. He specifically capitalized that word men, should be bought and sold. He has prostituted his negative for suppressing his legislative attempt to prohibit or restrain his execrable commerce. And this, the assemblage of horrors, might want no fact or of distinguished dye. He is now exciting that those very people to rise in arms among us and to purchase the liberty, purchase that liberty of which he has deprived them. And he's talking about the slaves now, by murdering the people upon whom he also obtruded them, thus paying off former crimes committed against the liberties of one people with crimes which he urges them to commit against the lives of another. This paragraph, the reason why you don't see it in the Declaration of Independence, the final cut, so to speak, is that the Declaration of Independence, every word, every syllable, every comma, every period, every semicolon, everything had to be accepted unanimously, all 13 colonies. Every single word of the Declaration of Independence had to be agreed upon and accepted by every member of the 13 colonies, period. Okay? The reason why this isn't in there isn't because they didn't believe it, that it was just bullcrap, is that 11 of the 13 voted for this, basically to get rid of slavery, okay? And there were two, I don't remember, it might have been Georgia, Mississippi, I can't remember who the two were, that voted against it. And it had to be before they even started the ratification process or the acceptance of the Declaration of Independence. They voted to say this has to be unanimous. No one's read the Declaration yet. We have to agree ahead of time. This must be unanimous. Period. Everybody agreed to it, and then when it came to this, two of the 13 colonies objected to it, and so they had to take it out because it wasn't a unanimous vote. Virginia, where Washington and Jefferson were from, guess how they voted? That's right. They voted to keep this in the Declaration of Independence, okay? Which would have dissolved slavery in the colonies, all right? They also tried doing some other stuff as they expanded territory. They tried to get anti-slave territory. There was a bunch of stuff that they tried to do that the slave states in the South, and not all of them, but some of the slave states in the South objected to, and when they object to something, when it has to be unanimous vote, that's the way it goes. You can't change the rules midstream. So that's what the founders, at least most of them, really felt of slavery. Jefferson put words to the founders' ideas. And that's why you don't see it in the final draft. So these spoiled, privileged students, and it doesn't matter what color they are. Some of them were from the Black Student Union, I think University of Washington, Baylor, probably the same type of thing. But it doesn't make any difference whether it was leftist whites or radical leftist blacks. It doesn't make any difference who they were. They get together and they take a stand against several hundred-year-old racism on a college campus. Racism that they say they still feel today. Maybe some do, but maybe some just feel something that just isn't there. And relatively speaking, it sure as heck ain't there, if you know what I mean, okay? It's not like they're in, put you all back in chains, right, Joe? They feel this as they stroll down, the manicured grounds of Washington State, University of Washington, or Baylor University in Waco, Texas, and they are pampered and they're privileged, and they worry about this kind of crap instead of worrying about how am I going to pay for, if I'm out of state, $40,000 a year education, because when I get out, I've got a degree in black art history, appreciation of one-eyed paraplegic left-handed transgenders. That was my major, and that's my degree. I have a degree in black art history appreciation of strictly one-eyed paraplegic left-handed transgenders. There's a huge market for that out there, guys. It's a good thing you paid 40 grand a year to do that. These are the kind of things you should need to worry about, not racism from a couple hundred years ago. It isn't a thing anymore. I'm sorry, okay? Now, as long as there are human beings in the world, of course there's going to be a few racists here and there, but for the most part, we're not racist, okay? Just leave us the frick alone and stop demanding these nonsensical things of us, and we'll be all good and good. So that's about all I've got. It's just, it's infuriating that these people are doing the bidding of the radical left, these Marxists, these trained Marxists. They know exactly what they're doing, and these people are the useful idiots of that movement, because they're assisting them in erasing American history so they can. Power hates a void. Okay. When that history is erased, something has to take its place. There's not just going to be a black hole. There's history up until this point, black hole, blank space, and then history starts anew. That's not the way it's going to work. That's going to be filled in with something. And that's what they plan on doing, is that they're going to slowly change history, that like the 1619 project, that's what they're trying to do with this. And that's the whole master plan, is to change, not just get rid of these historic figures and get rid of the bad history of America, but to change it and to rewrite it. That's the whole point, and we all know it. I'm preaching to the choir. Y'all probably know this, I'm sure. But at any rate, I find it fascinating. Go back and get a printed copy of the first draft of Jefferson's Declaration, and it is quite fascinating. That's all I got. My name is Brent Smith. I am the Common Constitutionalist. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to get a freaking whatever. See ya.